Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Workshop Whisperer live webinar regarding the COVID-19 crisis. Today, we're very excited to welcome a good friend to the Workshop Whisperer, Lesley Yates of the Australian Automotive Aftermarket Association. How are you, Lesley?
I'm well, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I can say that now that Queensland's the eastern seaboard are all back in alignment because daylight savings clicked over. So good afternoon to everyone.
Brilliant. Okay, so just before Lesley and I get started here, if you're on the webinar already, I can see there's heaps of people dropping in and saying hi. We want to be able to make sure that you can actually hear us and you can actually see us. So can you just enter the number 1 into the chat box for me and press enter? And as soon as we see a couple of those ones come up, we'll know that we're good to get chatting. There we go. Some ones dropping in there. Beautiful. Okay, Lesley. Well, we didn't know that we were going to be chatting again so soon after our episode on the podcast. Thanks so much for sparing the time to come on. I know you've been an extremely busy lady since all of this began. What does your workday look like at the moment?
Well, we're getting a lot of inquiries from workshops about 2 things specifically. One is, am I allowed to open? Am I required to shut down? And I'm happy to talk about that in a moment. And of course, the second thing that we're talking to workshops about in large numbers now are the various assistance packages and how people apply for those. So, and I'm happy to touch on both of those.
Okay. So why don't we talk about our stage 3 restrictions here in Australia and what that means for our workshops just on a day-to-day level.
Yeah, well, one of the legacies of being a federation, Rachael, is that, of course, we don't have a standard definition of what is an essential service for every state in Australia. So we do have some subtle changes in every state. But what I can say is that we are defined not by a list of what you can't do, but and not by a list of what you can do. So what government has done is specifically banned any event or any premises where people are allowed to congregate. And everyone knows what they are because no one's been able to go to the pub for a week. We are allowed to open because we are not on that list. Yep. So I'm speaking regularly into Premier's offices and into the COVID Business Liaison Unit federally to say, you need to keep talking to me, we're staying open. And the official position that I have is, yes, you are to stay open. And I say, could I please have a nice web link? Because I know that workshops would love to click somewhere and see a nice list of everything that stays open. The reality is we're not going to get that.
Yeah.
We are allowed to open because we're not on the shutdown list. Right. And that's as best we're going to get. But when you think about it, we are not a place where people congregate. That's why we're open. And you think about a restaurant that has decided to do takeaway only. So it's got a couple of cooks. It's got someone delivering supplies. It's got someone on the front counter doing coffee. That's not dissimilar to who we are. Yep. We've got 3 or 4 people back of house and 1 person front of house. So we are open for business. And we've been doing media work to make sure that people are aware of that. Yep. And as long as, of course, we have precautions in place. So all of this assumes that people have made changes, particularly to the front of house, in the way that they deal with customers. And I'm sure you're getting these, Rachels, but we've got a heap of really clever, innovative things that workshops are doing to make sure that there is distance and indeed adding a brand new service. The car comes back sanitized, so it's cleaner than when I dropped it off. Yeah. So if I'm ever worried about transmitting COVID-19, it won't be happening in my car. It's probably the most virus-free environment I have after it comes back from my independent repairer. So we're hearing of people moving the counter forward, of having contactless drop-off. So, and that's the thing that I'm saying to politicians and the media all the time. We have already got significant precautions in place, and we are doing our bit to make sure that this disease does not get transmitted, certainly not by the way that we work and not by the interior of the vehicle. And I think we're going to stay open right until the last phase, which is a full shutdown.
Yeah. And we were just discussing off air it's certainly my belief that that the government wants us to continue to trade. They don't want us to go into a full lockdown.
Yes.
And we should continue working as close to normal as possible until we receive information that we can.
Yeah, I think that's right. What we're saying is that we're still open. We are an essential service. Now, when I say essential service, that's small e, small s, because we're not officially an essential service, but we do provide services to the front line. We're the ones who make sure that health professionals can still get to work, and those of us who are caring for elderly parents or dropping off care packages, we're the ones who need to have our vehicles serviced and running well. And I had a nurse call me the other day who had a flat tyre. His independent repairer came out, replaced his tyre. He was due on a shift. He made his shift on time. So we are critical to making sure that healthcare professionals can deliver services, and that's certainly the way that we put it. We are officially part of what is called transport and logistics. So there are some definitions in some states, and we're in that basket of essential goods and services. I think one of the confusions that's happening for our workshops, Rachael, is there's a lot of information going to consumers. You know, don't leave your house unless it's essential, or you're getting food and groceries, or you're picking up or dropping off children, or you're going out in twos only to have some exercise. So we're getting a lot of information to consumers, don't leave the house. And then workshops are saying, well, that means they can't come and see me. But when they say you can leave to go and get your groceries, they're saying essential goods and essential services. So we're in that line. You can leave your home to go to the chemist, get your car fixed, get a tyre puncture fixed. That we're in that basket. So I think we're often confusing what we're saying to consumers, which is don't leave your house unless you have to, with what government is saying to business. And as you said, Rachael, we stay open. It's business as usual. Yeah.
And I think, I saw in some of our online groups last week, a couple of workshop owners saying, that's it, we're closing. We're going to all go on the dole until this is over. This is before the JobKeeper thing came out, so they may have changed their mind. But closing now and trying to ride this out, or saying you're going to pop back up again on the other side, we don't know how long this is going to last. That could effectively spell death for any business closing right now.
Yeah, I think we learned something from the global financial crisis, that the businesses that were able to hold on, particularly the businesses that had a relationship with their employees, so did as much as they could, annual leave on half pay, relocating people to stock taking, whatever you do, the businesses that kept a relationship, they rebounded quicker, much quicker. And of the ones who didn't, who went to a hibernation phase, they either took a long time to recover or didn't make it.
Yeah, that's right. And the reality is that a lot of shop owners weren't in a great position before this happened, cash flow wise. And I've said it over and over again that our auto repair shop can run off the smell of an oily rag for a very long time, because your EFTPOS machine settles every day. And if that was, the situation that a shop owner found themselves in, they're the ones that are most at risk here, even if they continue to trade and not come out the other side. So we may see a very different looking auto aftermarket on the other side of this.
Yes, we may. Look, I'm hopeful that, I know there's going to be a percentage, Rachael, that just aren't going to make it. And I don't think we should be naive about that. But you know what? I'm really hoping that people are going to use all the resources that we're pumping out, and everyone else is, to try and delay that or stave that off, or just see if they can make it through to the other side.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of success recently for people who don't own their buildings. People who are renegotiating their rents are doing really well. That's a surprise, isn't it? I don't think we've ever seen an environment where a landlord says, sure, don't pay me rent for 3 months. And that's because if the business shuts down, then the landlord gets nothing.
That's right. And they still have a tenant at the end.
Yeah, you'll have a tenant at the end. So there's all sorts of things that we're able to, in addition to the government funding, which is substantial, there are lots of things that can be done. Have a look at the outgoings, the rent. If there are very large companies that you owe money to for parts, now is the time to pick up the phone and say, let's talk about the 90-day terms.
Yeah, exactly. And I know the AAA has been working really hard in the industrial relations space or the HR space to help its members. Are you finding that those resources are being well utilised at the moment? I know you guys had a webinar last week as well.
Yeah. Our HR line has run off its feet. It's interesting, Rachel, too, because about 50% of those calls, people kind of know the answer. They've actually got a plan. It's been quite. We went through that first period of total panic. And now I think people are settling into, okay, I think I know what I'm doing now and how many staff we can hang on to and what we need to do over on this side. So I think what they're looking to do is kind of float their plan past our HR people. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this with 2 people. And by and large, they're spot on. They're right. But I think they're looking for a solid advice to go, yep, you got it. You can do that. Under the law, you're allowed to do that. So I think people are beginning to plan. I mean, I think all of this is very difficult because we don't know what the end date is. Let's face it. If I said to you it's the end of June, we could all sit down with a pad and a pen and go, okay, this is how I'm going to survive. But we don't know. But I think people need to be thinking 60 to 90 days. What does that look like? I'm sure you've been talking to people about, I know you've been talking to people about scenario planning. And the HR service has been useful to do that. But about 50% need advice and 50% need confirmation that what they've got in mind can work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's certainly been our advice to our clients to be thinking about what you want your business to look like on the other side of this. Because while this is uncomfortable and hard, there is opportunity to effectively start from scratch for a lot of auto repair shop owners. So what is it that you would like your business to look like? You know, you'll have people coming off modified work contracts and all different kinds of things. How do you want it to be? That's really what we can be thinking about while still being stuck in the present.
Yeah. Look, I think it's the case for all of us personally, isn't it? We're beginning to think about, what does it look like that I did have 3 months worth of savings? And from now on, I'm really going to keep that and not dip into it for an overseas travel or for us, Rachel, for a brand new pair of shoes. So I think, but the other thing is that, I'm at home all the time. Can I be thinking about a new exercise plan? I think we go through that period of, oh my God, everything is terrible. And then what can I do? What could I possibly do with this that would make it a good thing, that would make it a positive? I mean, even small things like cleaning up.
Yeah. Cleaning up, having a look at maybe for the first time in years how your customer might view the outside of the workshop, the inside of the reception area, doing all these things that you have told yourself for years you are too busy and don't have time for. Now's the time.
Yes. And relocating, reassigning some staff to do some of those. We've all had stuff on our to-do list, even cleaning up the customer system, the customer file, how much information we have on each customer. And we know that sometimes those records are incomplete. So being able to relocate staff where possible to do some of those business building activities that you don't normally have time for.
Yeah, and it's been our advice to our New Zealand clients while they're in lockdown, to be, going through all the photos, the video footage that you might have taken over the last couple of years, and you literally don't have anything else to do. Now is the time. There's never been this gift of time where you're on pause to be able to get this stuff out there. So while everything is so uncertain, the one thing that is certain is that it's the best time you'll ever be given to be able to get some of this stuff in line. To be doing some housekeeping. I think the other story that's come out of the virus has been a little bit more cooperation, particularly geographically. So I have heard of workshops that are
are struggling to keep their apprentice, and I have seen apprentices picked up by other workshops, and this is really heartwarming to hear about, that people are saying, I know I'm going to have trouble. And it does depend on what kind of client base you've got. If you've got exposure to a lot of business fleets, I mean, that's wonderful. And Rachael, we did tell people to go out there and bid for small business fleets. They're the ones suffering at the moment. So if you're feeling like 50% of your work's already gone, but there are workshops that are, around a hospital precinct that have still got a full book. And I must say, a few of our workshops are very, very busy. Then we're able to look at whether or not the apprentice can go and work over there. Interestingly enough, that apprentice subsidy scheme is fantastic. It can give businesses $21,000 to keep their apprentice. And even if you do need to transfer the apprentice permanently, the new place can pick up that, as long as that apprentice was employed before March the 1st. So there is avenue in that scheme to allow people to do that.
And it's so important that we try and retain the apprentices at all costs, given the skill shortage that we will say that we still have it, but so that we don't fall into a situation where it's even worse at the other side of this, because we stopped growing our own.
Yes, and we've got to think about how it is we're going to manage the peak, because if we think that people are probably delaying their service, their logbook service, say 2,000 to 5,000 kilometres, then we are going to see a bubble here coming out the other side. So we know that we've had some cancellations, particularly in service. So we know people are going to be running their vehicles longer, and what does that mean? So it does need a bit of wear and tear. One of the things we're saying out in the media is, we understand that you might delay a service, but do not delay anything that shows a warning light on your dash. So if your oil light comes on, please call your local mechanic. So we're going to have to be flexible about those. People might not be comfortable doing a full service, but you might be able to talk them into coming in, let me top up your oil. So it maintains, or
at least come in and then once they see how many precautions you're taking, you might
absolutely
be able to go the extra way.
Yes, you might be able to allay their fears. So we're going to be doing more work on that level, saying, we know that you might be worried about your service. You shouldn't be, because you'll find a whole lot of signs in the workshop showing you what they're doing, and I really encourage people to put those signs up. But don't ignore any warning signs. Don't ignore a flat tire or a tire that looks like it's lost a bit of pressure, because if this goes on for another 68 days, you will not have your car.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we don't want people to be without. There's just a question here which I don't know the answer to, regarding the apprentice subsidy and JobKeeper. They would only qualify for one of those, I imagine.
Actually, they might end up with both of them. I'd need to do a little bit of work, and I can come back on that one, because the apprentice one goes for 3 quarters. And that JobKeeper one runs from about, May, June, July, August. So there might be a little bit of room there to have an overlap. I'd need to have a look at those side by side, but it's a very good question. But I can come back on that one.
Yeah, and we just have a couple of people on the webinar saying that they have applied for both. So I guess they will come back and tell you if that wasn't allowed eventually.
Yeah, look, one of the things that's really interesting about the subsidies that are available, the stimulus, is that in previous economic stimulus, our workshops weren't part of this equation. And that's because those stimulus were based on companies making large investments and government matching that investment. So you needed to spend in order to get cash. But these are, I know I've heard this word so many times, it's so annoying, but this is unprecedented. We are going to be getting money from government simply to keep our employees engaged. And a number of those programs just come as a matter of right, which I'm excited about. So you need to apply for the apprentice one, but your apprentice provider will work you through that. The boosting cash flow, the 100,000, that just happens as a result of the activity statement. And the JobKeeper one, if you're getting a bit, I don't know how that works, that's because it hasn't gone through Parliament yet. but everyone should have registered. So there was a click on there, you register with the Australian Tax Office, and they come back with an information package. The reality is, Rachel, if you're eligible, you're going to get that cash, and you're going to get it without some kind of 20-page submission and a blood sample. It's going to flow.
Yeah. I heard the Attorney General saying this morning that that it hasn't gone through the Parliament. They're hopeful that the Labor government will be friendly and get it done, but it does require an alteration of the Fair Work Act, which under normal circumstances has never been done before. So years and years and years and years and years of change would need to occur in a very short time.
Oh, yeah. Look, the signs are looking good that people aren't going to tinker with it. That's what normally happens when you open up an act of Parliament. Everyone's got a wish list, and that's why they all get bogged down. This is just an opening up to get that JobKeeper through, and the opposition and the crossbenchers are making all the right noises. I'm pretty optimistic about that one.
Yeah. Did you just want to touch on the $100,000 payment? That we just got somebody that said they haven't heard of that. It's probably just not heard it described in different terms.
Yep. So this one's called boosting cash flow, and there were two announcements for boosting cash flow. The first one gave us 50,000, and the second one topped it up to 100,000. And this is how it works. So get ready for this. This is how it works. It effectively gives you back your PAYG tax for your employees. So when you put your activity statement in, you might be saying on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, let's start with monthly, every month I collect $10,000 of tax that I've got to give to the tax office for my employees. That's their pay-as-you-go tax. So $10,000 a month over 3 months, January to March, that would be $30,000. Well, you're going to get that back.
Yeah.
There you go. Well done.
Handy.
You've collected 30,000. You can actually keep that. Now, if you're in credit, you'll get a check within 14 days. So that's January to March. That's 30,000. Then we'll go April, May, June. So you're another 30,000. You'll get 20,000 of that back. So it is whenever you hit that 50,000 threshold, that's the end of that cash.
Yep.
So we modelled this, Rachel. So we got the announcement, and then we sat down and thought, let's pretend to be a workshop. You know, we're about 5 or 6 people. We've got 3 technicians, someone who owns the workshop, and a front of house person. And we found that for a workshop of 5 to 6 employees, it's likely you're going to get the full 50,000 in that first tranche, and then the full 50,000 in the second tranche. And let me tell you how that one works. So what that one does is, let's say you've got 50K for January to June. Then what it does is it gives you 25% of that in June, July, August, September. So 12,500 for 4 months. That gets you up to 100K. So if your pay-as-you-go contribution to the tax office is around 8,300, 8,500 per month, you'll end up with 100,000. Now, it happens as you put your activity statement in. There's nothing else that you need to do. It will just flow to you. And if you're in credit, you'll get a check within 14 days. The reason that we wanted to get out there and make sure people know, you know this better than most, is that people are making business decisions. There's no point it being shit, where'd this money come from? The tax officer sent me a check. Oh, my God. We want people to know that pretty much 5 to 6 people in a workshop, you're going to be at the 100K mark. And often when they say there's a program that gives you 20 to 100,000, I know our workshops are thinking, oh, I'm probably down the 20 end. It's highly likely that 80% of our workshops are going to end up with 100,000 credit from the tax office, and that will flow to you as cash if you're already in credit.
Yeah. And there's a question there around if you're already in debt with the ATO. So a credit only flows out after the debt has been settled. So if you've been on a long-term payment plan, you may not receive funds to your account, but the great news is that you no longer owe the tax office. So it's we certainly shouldn't be disappointed by that.
No, I think even removing a tax office debt has got to be some removal of a burden.
Oh, And tax office debt would be the most common debt that I see workshop owners in, and many of them have carried it for years.
That's interesting.
So it is 100% a wonderful thing if you no longer have that to worry about. So, and I have had several shop owners have conversations with me about how they may not qualify right now for the JobKeeper payments because they haven't actually seen a drop-off yet. And my advice to them has been, well, that's a great thing if you're still trading business as usual. We don't want to rely on welfare.
Yeah. Look, and I guess that's one of the things that people can be doing while they're waiting for this thing to go through Parliament. As you know, you need to demonstrate a 30% reduction. So now's a good time to pull up March, April, May, June of last year and see what the turnover was.
Yeah.
Because that they're going to need that. That's probably what they're going to be using as evidence of a reduction in turnover. Yeah, I did see the head of GPC today saying they're not going to qualify for JobKeeper unless they lose 50%. And you know what? They'd rather not qualify for JobKeeper.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
that is 100% right. And many of my clients are coming off record months, and they're going, well, when's this going to hit? Sitting around waiting for it. And I think that our experience has been that the further you are from a capital city, the less the slowdown has been. So for many, it may not be till the end of this week or the week after where it starts to have that kind of an impact. But we certainly shouldn't be disappointed if we don't need JobKeeper as much as the concept of having the government pay $750 a week per employee sounds good.
Yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned GPC. Speaking of suppliers, to your knowledge, has there been any issue with supply lines to date?
Look, not that we're hearing. When we were in very early stages of the virus being very China-centric, we were looking very closely at the supply lines, particularly since, as you know, we've been through that massive uptake that we have right before Christmas. So we were concerned, but a lot of the post-Christmas stock up had occurred. And we weren't hearing of any reduction in parts at all. So because we're getting a lot of media inquiries asking us about parts, and we were phoning around saying, are you short of parts? Are you short of anything? And there were some odd things, but not really. 80-90% of parts were still flowing. There's also been some additional government effort now put into freight. And that's going to be very beneficial. So I think if you're looking for parts that are unique, you might start to feel a problem in a month or so as those stocks dwindle. But the government's freight initiatives should take up that slack. So we're going to see more freight flights going back and forward with all of the precautions in place. That'll give us something to do with all of those, Qantas Airbuses that are all parked and not taking to the skies. So not as yet are we seeing any parts problems.
Yeah. And there's just a couple of comments trickling through about, having this time last year they had less staff, so their productive capacity was less. They've staffed up, now they're producing more, so their figures are higher. However, they still noticed a dip in what trading they have been doing. Is your advice to apply anyway?
Yes, indeed. Yes. We are having some discussions with them about what they consider to be a dip in trading. We understand that. And it also occurs with some other, weird things. Like if you took over the business, there are going to be some people in a bit of a grey area. You're right. If you've lost a staff member, you might be. But so what we're interested in is done on absolute turnover or is it done on capacity? Because if you had lost a staff member last year, you would have been running at 100% capacity, and now you might be running at 60%. So we'll need to have those conversations. My best advice that I can give until the legislation is passed this week is register, get that kit from the ATO. That makes sure that you've put a chip in the game and you've said we are definitely seeing a downturn and we're going to be part of this JobKeeper program, and let's have a look. Because one of the things they sometimes do, Rachel, is they've got a pool of money and they set the guidelines thinking they're going to be about equal, and then sometimes we can find there are less people using that money, so they relax the guidelines, and vice versa. So let's make sure you just get that registration in, and we're certainly having some conversations about exactly that. So the feedback's really important to us.
Okay. So overall, Lesley, the message is, until we're told otherwise, it's to continue business as normally as we can, having implemented our sanitisation procedures, and basically, really, it's proceed until apprehended.
Yeah, stay open. Let customers know that you are open. This is a good opportunity to find a way to talk to them. We have all of the precautions in place. We're able to sanitize your vehicle. So this is a really good opportunity. I know it sounds weird, but to do some marketing.
Yeah.
I'm encouraging people not to just go, oh, we're still open, because we're getting a few kind of, there's nutty consumers that wander around looking for people doing the wrong thing. So I've had a couple of members ring and say someone came in and yelled at him. And I'm like, you need to push back and say, we are advised by government to remain open. It's essential to our economy and our essential services that I'm open, and that's why I'm doing that. I think another clever idea is to put some signage up or to get the word out that if people are working in emergency services, that you'll give them priority. Yep. So are you a nurse or a doctor or a healthcare worker? Please give me a call because we'll see you first. I mean, it's another way of reinforcing that our sector is here for community good. So I think one of our kind of groups put up a message early on saying we're still open, and the response was not good to that Facebook post. And I know why, because it looks kind of a bit overly pragmatic and a little bit mercenary. Everyone else is suffering, but we're still open. I think importantly, we've got to put a message out there that we're still doing our job to help you, and we are doing all of the precautions that we can to protect ourselves and to protect you, and we're part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I think that marketing to healthcare workers is really clever, and you know what? It's really important. If you are a nurse and you've got a flat tire, call us. We'll come and fix it for you. We'll do what we can to make sure that we're part of the whole Australia-wide effort to help each other out.
It may be considered that there's never been a better time for us collectively in the independent space to change the opinion that the community may have of mechanics, being community focused.
Yes, yeah. Look, I think our mechanics are community focused. We just don't tell anyone,
That's right.
We're so quiet about it. We know that if there's a local sporting club, we're on that committee or we're providing funds for that. We just don't do it as big as the big Toyota sign in the middle of an AFL game.
Yeah.
I agree. And now is the time for us to be talking about how we do care for the community. We do care about our customers, and we do want them to be able to still go and do their food shopping. I'm not surprised that rural and remote areas are still doing well, Rachael, because they know that you lose use of your car, you're really not going anywhere, you're not going to eat. So I think what we need to be saying is that we are providing services to essential services. We are an essential good, because you can't afford to be driving around with a warning light on your dash. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're worried about a full service, give me a call. I'll give you a partial service. And I've seen some Facebook posts of people being very creative about that. But you're right. I think let's reach out and have a conversation with consumers and talk to them about what they're worried about.
Excellent. Well, I think that that we've covered all of our ground there, Lesley. Is there anything else that you wanted to convey before we wrap up today?
Look, I don't think so, except that let's see if we can keep sharing great stories. I think that's what keeps us all alive. I think we're all getting a little bit weary. I'm thinking about, when is this all going to be over? I'd like to get back onto mandatory data sharing and choice of repair and servicing vehicles under warranty and the truth about cap price service. I'm going to be doing all of those things. So we're all getting a little bit tired. Yeah. And I think it's good to put up good stories of what you've done differently or interesting, how you've helped each other out. I think we could all use a bit of a lift. We can all use some good stories about how we're all coping and how we're all going to come out of the other side.
Yeah, a better business. Yeah. Excellent. Well, Lesley, thanks so much for taking time out to come on the webinar today. Really, really appreciate it. Stay safe and well, and let's talk again soon.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, that is all for today. If you're out there listening, we hope that you too stay safe and well. As you heard it from Lesley, it's business as usual until we're told otherwise. So jump off this webinar and get back to work and get cracking and communicate with your customers. Enjoy the rest of the day.